Hey everyone, I had the privilege and honor of speaking with Mrs. Roz Holmes, someone who I am so inspired by. She used to live here in the US, but now lives in Panama, where she has designed her life so that her external environment matches her internal landscape of peace. So take a listen to how she made this happen. Any of you who have ever wanted to do something different, but maybe felt a little bit stuck or maybe some apprehension, definitely listen to the wisdom that she shares, and even just to get a glimpse of what life is like in Panama. Enjoy. How are you doing? I have a feeling I already know what you're going to say because you're in Panama and it's your paradise. But how are you feeling today?
You know, that's a twofold question. I feel great. I just had a couple visiting about 30 minutes ago who went on the tour with my hubby and I back in January of 2025. And they're young, and I say young because I'm in my 70s and they're in their 50s. So they're a young couple and they have recently moved to Panama, but they landed in the city. And so they were out here visiting my area because they were like, oh, we thought we wanted the city, but we really want the peace and calmness. So because I live literally like inside of a rainforest, every morning that I wake up, I get to go out and look at mountains and trees and hear
Hmm.
birds. So I start, and I said this to Stephanie, I said, I start from a place of peace every morning.
Hmm.
And it's up to me who or what I allow to disrupt my peace. And most of the time, it's like nobody or nothing.
And I've seen some of the pictures. I've seen some of the sunset. So as you're talking, of course, I can visualize because it's really it's like lush, plush, green, and then you also have access to a lot of fresh.
I can turn the screen around. Hold on a second. I'm gonna turn the screen
Okay,
around. Can you see that?
I can see the sky. Ooh, I can yes. Ooh, that makes me just want to walk outside barefoot.
Oh, so that's what I wake up to every morning. And the sun shines here every day, you know? So yeah.
It's refreshing. Even, I mean, just that scenery by itself is so refreshing. And so is that, so when you knew that you wanted to make the move to Panama, did you automatically know that you wanted that type of scenery? Or did you, like some people say, well, I'll start with the city. And then you were like, this reminds me of too much of a pace that I'm trying to get away from. Like what made you decide on where you are?
Well, I knew I didn't want city because I didn't live in, I moved here from Charleston, although I'm from Washington, D.C., but I lived in Charleston for the last 6 or 7 years, which is where I met your auntie. What was she?
That was my mama. So she was
Your
my adopt. God placed her in my life to serve as my grandmother during my young adult and adult years.
So that's where I met her. So I knew that coming into Panama, I didn't want to be in the city, but I wanted to have access to the city. So much like in Charleston, I could get in my car and drive into Charleston in, 20, 25 minutes into the city.
Hmm.
So that's sort of what I was looking for, was being able to not be in the city, to be in the suburbs where there's more lush green and, more spaces between my neighbor and I. And yet go into the city to do, whatever you do in the city. So that's how it happened.
Okay, the best of both worlds. So the first question I have is, at this stage in your life, how has your definition of success changed from what you were taught to pursue when you were younger?
So because of my age, and it may sound strange to someone so young, but because of my age, success for me in my teens was getting through high school, because some
Mhm.
of my peers were dropping out of high school, and a couple of my friends got pregnant in 10th 11th grade and didn't finish. So each, it's like it changed as I got older. My definition for success shifted to whatever the next goal was in my life. So coming right out of high school, I was married and started having a family. So then my goal became being a great wife and mother. Well, the wife part, not so much. So that shifted when I left, the hubby, and moved back to Washington, D.C. from Philadelphia, because I'm from Washington, D.C. But then it became being a good mother. Success to me was being a good mom and being able to provide for my family, keep food on the table, keep a roof over their
Mhm.
head, make sure they, performed well in school. And, so each time and each generation in my life, if that makes sense, what look
Yeah.
what my success has shifted. Um, I once they were grown and gone for me, my
And
success
I
then
can't wait to hear this part because this is where I'm
once
at now. This is the
yeah,
stage that I'm in
yeah,
now.
okay, okay. So once they were grown and gone, my success was like having my own little black book and dating and traveling anywhere I wanted to travel because I didn't have to take care of them. So only person I had to be concerned about was me. So, and that kind of has been what success has continued to look like for me is, having the freedom, the freedom to go and travel. And I mean, and working where I worked for a television network, and we did productions all over a lot of the Caribbean islands. So I got to travel all over the
Oh,
Caribbean. Yeah, I got to travel all over the Caribbean and just travel. So that's kind of, doing what I want to do.
during this time when you started traveling, so you start venturing out beyond your hometown, like your friends, your family members, did you have to combat any of their fears, like from a safety? Oh, you're by yourself and you're traveling, and did you? And you may not have encountered any of that, but if you did, how did you navigate that, and what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to travel, but they're hearing some of the not so positive feedback?
I, I fortunately had a mother who was a renowned gospel singer who traveled all around the world. So she was my cheerleader. When I would say, "Oh,
Yes.
mom, I'm going," "Oh, yes, go, 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 yes." And my children, because they were now on their own, pretty much young adults on their own, and they were like, "Do you, mom? Do you?"
I
So
love it.
fortunately, I did not bump into resistance to travel. And I would just encourage. This is one of the things my mom taught me when I was a teenager. We watched a movie together, and there was this actress named Lana Turner. This is way back. But in this movie, Lana Turner allowed her children to pull her away from a love relationship that she had with a man who maybe he was younger than her, maybe whatever. But they were like, "Oh no, mom, he's not good for you, and you need to basically just settle down and be an old lady." And when she did that and she lost this love of her life, when Christmas time came around, her children bought her a television and then left and said bye bye. And she was
Mm,
alone. And she was alone. And my mother said, "That's a lesson." She said, do you, because everybody on earth has the same opportunity. Do not allow
wow.
anyone to plant a seed of doubt in you when you want to do something. Do what you
Mm.
want to do.
So you had that support from the get-go. So you saw that it was modeled and then it was verbally reiterated to you. And then your children, so you didn't have to deal with mom guilt. So I hear so many women who are like, I want to do something, but my kids, I'm like, them kids gonna be fine. They'll be all right. And most children, if you have a healthy relationship, they want to see their parents living because first of all, if you live in your own life, then you can stay out of theirs. So I love that for you. I love that you had that support and you had that encouragement. So then that makes sense. So you could travel with boldness and knowing that you had people back home that supported that. That's what because there's one thing to travel and visit places, right? Or even travel for work, but to relocate, if I'm not mistaken, this is your first time like actually living out of the country, or have you lived out of the country before?
No, never lived out of the country. And my first relocate inside the country was when I left Washington, D.C. and moved to Charleston. And my friends and family were like, "Do you know anyone in Charleston?" And I was like, "No." "So why are you moving to Charleston?" "Well, I read about it. It seems to be a really beautiful place. It's near the water, and I've always wanted to live near the water. But you don't know anyone, and I'll meet you." Because this is what I believe, and this is what, for me, what I believe is true. I believe that wherever you are, a piece of your tribe is there.
Mm,
Wherever you are, a piece of your tribe is there. And when I moved to Charleston, did not know not one single soul, but because I like going to church, I saw there was this gospel program that was happening with this choir, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go." I was sitting alone. Behind me, I heard two or three ladies saying, "Oh, yeah, and they're having line dancing classes at the gym." My hair snapped around, and I was like, I don't mean to be ear hustling, but I do. I heard you say something about line dancing. They're like, "Oh, yeah, they've got classes." And that was all it took. I went to line dancing class. I made friends. From there, I made more friends. From there, I made more friends. And it started like that. I found my tribe. Going someplace new, just, sort of move toward what that is you like to do. Like even here in Panama, before I came, there were some people on Facebook. There's a Facebook group of people that are coming to Panama.
Mhm.
So before I even came to Panama, I had already connected with some sisters who like to read. And we decided we were going to have a book club. So there you are. I have a book club. I teach line dancing, and that's my tribe, and those are my girlfriends.
It is important when you get somewhere. Well, I would say it's important to most people that you do is start to build some type of community. So I heard a couple of things. So you were able to integrate into a community, and you've also built community. So the book club did not exist, but you're like, hey, I like to read. You like to read. So let's just get together. Let's form a book club. So that says a lot about your personality. So definitely, you're not shy. You're not afraid to initiate conversation. And
But I think I'm kind of an introvert because I'm okay being. I can stay home alone for days, and I'm okay. Give me a good book to read, and I'm okay. But I do like sharing that experience. So if I read a good book, I want to have some girlfriends to talk about it with. So yeah, yeah.
yeah. And how long were you in Charleston? Did you
Seven
live here
years.
for 7 years?
7 years.
Okay. Okay, because I was going to say by the time I started, I don't know how we got connected on Facebook, but it looked like you were like very well ingrained in the community. So that's a lot of 7 years is not a long time to be a transplant. In Charleston, I'm not originally from Charleston. I'm from South Carolina, but believe it or not, South Carolina is a small state. But and I've had this conversation with other people who did not, were not born here, that it can be an interesting place. I'm sure like most places to sort of, navigate and feel at home. So you did that in a relatively small amount of time. So that's wonderful. And when you were talking about your love for dancing, that helped me too when I started working in St. Croix. So when I got my job there, one of the first things that I did was I Googled dance St. Croix, and a belly dancing class popped up. And so I thought, well, I can't go to the whole series because it was once a week and I'm only going to be there over one weekend. So I sent a message and said, hey, can I just pop in? And she said, yeah. And long story short, now this is a friend of mine, Dr. Kanuma Simmons. I ended up going to Greece with her group and we've done retreats together. I'm actually headed I'll be down there in a couple of weeks speaking at a retreat. And so just like you said, finding your interest, because when you first hear it, for somebody who's not used to establishing community, it can sound very daunting. But if you just start with like, well, what do you like to do? If you like to garden, if you like to dance, you like to read books, you like to travel, finding a piece of your tribe. So I love that advice. Wherever you go, there is a piece of your tribe somewhere, but it does require, like we just said, some ear hustling, some active
Yes,
participation.
yes.
Okay, so your first relocation out of the country was to Panama. And that's a pretty bold, like that's a pretty bold move. At least when you move to Charleston, things are about the same in terms of, generally speaking, there's a difference between living in the South, in the North or wherever, East Coast, West Coast, but moving to a completely different culture, the language is different. You look around, you have different scenery, people look different, you're having different foods. Was any of that like scary at all? Or you just, you got to the point where you're like, I'm ready, I'm doing it, and did it, no looking back.
Yeah, that I was motivated by the politics in America. And I said before things happened that if they happen, I have to go because I just knew in my spirit that it was just going to be just like kind of downhill for a while. And I was like, you know what? I've been through the protests, I've been through the marches, I've picketed, I've done all of that. I don't,
Hmm.
I didn't have the energy to put that kind of energy into fighting what I saw coming down the pipe. So started looking, my partner and I started looking around for someplace else to go. And he had been in the military and he had actually lived in Greece before. So he was like, I really loved Greece. I loved Greece. And I said, well, I vacationed in Greece. And while I didn't not like Greece, Greece did not open its arms and welcome me.
And that
There
makes a
were
difference.
Yes. So I said, I
Mhm.
want to go where I don't stand out because of the color of my skin. I want to go where I blend. And so that drew us to Latin America. And in looking at Panama in particular, there were these Facebook groups and people were just raving about, oh, I moved to Panama and my cost of living is blah, 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 blah. And you can get a pinch. It just, all of the checks just kept going ka-king, ka-king, ka-king. So we chose to do what's called a relocation tour. And what that allows you to do is come into Panama, but you go to different areas. It's like if you come to the United States and you only visit Charleston, you really don't get an idea of what the United States is like. So just imagine coming to the United States and going to Atlanta and going to Charleston and going to Virginia, just going to different places. So that's what the tour did. It was a 7 day,
I was
seven or
going to
eight
ask,
day
how
tour.
long is it? Okay.
Yeah, it was a 7 or 8 day tour, nice air conditioned luxury bus and everything. And they fed us everywhere we went. And so they showed us the further away from the city that you move, the less your rents and your expenses would be. However, you are further away from the city. So, like I said, I knew I didn't want to be in the city, but I wanted to be on the outskirts in the suburbs. So there were so many various support groups of people who had already done. It's like we did not have to reinvent the wheel. And I don't think there are many places, now that I think about it, I don't think that there are many places that we as African Americans can go now where we literally will have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, we've got Thailand, a whole bunch of African Americans are living in Thailand, Portugal.
Portugal. Yep.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Mexico. I mean, so we're just all over the place. And we're there and we're there to support and to help you if you reach out to us. Because when I got in the Panama relocation group, there wasn't a question that I could ask that someone had not already experienced or been through or had a similar experience. And they were like, oh, well, what we did was blah, 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 blah. And what I did was blah, blah, blah. So it's like the support, there's already a support system in place for relocating if that's what you want to do. The support system is there. You have to just hook into it.
I love that. I think I first noticed it was maybe 2021. Have you heard of the Exodus Summit before?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
love
So
those systems. Yes.
yes, I don't know if maybe it was 2020 or maybe it was 2020, but I do know we were kind of like stuck at home because it was during, I don't know if it was quarantine or just the regular post-pandemic. And I just remember it was difficult not being able to leave. And so I was, finding all these online groups. And so somehow I ended up getting connected with them, and they had there was the first Exodus Summit, and I attended that, and I was so on fire. I was like, oh, I'm getting up out of here. And so I did. So I put it was 2020. The reason it was 2020 because I ended up doing a mini sabbatical, and it was to Mexico. So it was just like an 11-day itinerary. And so we flew into Cancun, and then we rented a car. I don't think I told my parents about that part because I didn't want them to be like, you gotta be driving through Mexico. So we drove through, we went to Tulum, we went to gosh, I forgot a place that was south of Tulum, but we, pretty much just kind of toured around. And after that, I was like, I may not be able to relocate and move because at the time we still had, children or whatever that, that weren't independent yet. But that's sort of what set it off for me in terms of looking at there's a possibility of doing slow travel or even relocating at some point and turning it from just traveling to do bucket list items to traveling to experience more of the culture and just get an experience other than the one that we currently have being Black Americans. And that's when I started saying, like, I'm not the only one thinking this. There, like you said, women everywhere, like every corner of the globe, and congregating and growing in numbers more and more, like every year. And so I absolutely love it. And I'm glad that you had a positive experience with that because I've only seen the groups, some of the groups, but I've never really gotten in there to say, okay, this is what I'm doing to see if people really are as helpful. So it's very encouraging to hear that people are there. And now you're there. Now you're on the other side of it. So you're part of the group that's helping other people recognize that the dream is possible. And if this is what you want to do, right, we're here. We're here. You don't have to
Yeah,
do it by yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You kind of hinted at the beginning, like you wake up. and you have this peaceful view, and you get to invite whatever you want or not want into your life. But just tell us just a little bit more about what it's like living in Panama, your day to day. What's like your average daily schedule? How do you get your social time in, and your exercise, and how do you feed your spiritual needs, all of that stuff?
So I, for the first time ever, came to understand the scripture that says, "Be still and know
Mm,
that I am God." When I walk, there's some paths up in these mountains. And when I'm out at 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, walking through those mountains, those paths, and the air is just so fresh and clean, and the birds, it's like an orchestra of birds. But then if you're still, if you're really still, you can just see the smallest little creature crawling on your feet, making its way to whatever its source is. And I take the time to be still and to know that God is just God over all of this, all of it,
mm,
and we say, my God, well, that's fine. But God is over all of this, and it is just so awesome. So I really feel for people who struggle to just be still. The most profound and meaningful messages that I have received have come from just being still.
mm.
So my walks, I get up in the morning and I'll have a cup of coffee, and I literally will sit out on the patio, and my partner knows. He's like, okay, it's like, you are going to give me a good 10 or 15 minutes to just be still, to just be still. And so that's like a woosa, woosa, woosa. Okay. Now, I might walk, I might get on my bike, ride around. It's a nice community for riding around. But mind you, I have not allowed any outside noise, no Good Morning America, no CNN, none of that have I allowed to come into my system and into my spirit,
Mm.
period. Period. Because whether we admit it or not, or whether we recognize it or not, that shifts your balance. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, yeah, all of a sudden it's like, oh,
Hmm.
did you see what happened on Good Morning America? Oh, did
Yep.
no, and I
This
don't need,
alert, that alert. Yep.
yeah, what does
Hmm.
that add to my well-being? What does that do for my wellness to watch and see and hear? Nothing. So,
Do you feel like you
um,
were able to disconnect more from it, like being outside? Like if you were, let's say, if you still lived in Charleston or still lived in DC, do you feel like it would be as easy? Because you could still say, I'm not going to watch it, but living in America is kind of, do you feel like it was harder to dissociate from that because you kind of felt like, well, I'm here. I need to at least know what's going on.
right, right. And so that was the commitment. The commitment that I made to self was to leave America at the border.
I love that.
And leaving America at the border doesn't mean that you just totally, shut yourself out. It means you don't need a day to day, hour to hour, blow by blow, blow by blow. Because somebody somewhere is going to tell you something that you didn't know, and you're like, okay, how does that add to my life?
Right.
I just don't want my energy. Energy is important to me. Energy is important.
Hmm.
I don't want my energy elevated about some circumstances and situations that are happening way over there that
It doesn't
I
impact your day to day.
right. So my prayer, my dominant prayer, because there are multiple prayers, but my dominant prayer for my family and my friends is that God would just please, please, please keep them healthy and keep them safe. And I thank God for doing it because it's going to be done. So if my family and friends, are safe and healthy, everything else is like a piece of cake. Okay. So my day. Okay, so my day might like today, I got up this morning, had my coffee, did my, meditation. I don't have a word for it. I just had my time. Had my time. And then I came in and practiced a little bit because I have a line dance class that I teach on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. So I did my little practice, what little dances I was going to do, give the ladies today. Then I went to my line dance class and we line danced until 11 o'clock and we were all sweaty and loving it.
So you're getting
Um,
exercise and socializing. So two in one.
it's usually about 8 of us. So today it was nine or 10 of us today. And yes, the socializing, the music. I love music. The music. We played some Usher. We played some
Oh,
Babyface. So yeah. So and then I met, ran a few errands, came back home, and that's when the couple that had been on the tour with us in January called and said, "Oh, we're in the area." I was like, "Well, come on by." So they came by and they looked at the place because they're looking to get out of the city. They said it's just too much. It's too much energy. It's too much noise. While they like the apartment that they're in, they just want to get away from the constant noise of being in the city, and it's city noises.
mm-hmm.
So they came, and after that, I had a little something to eat, and then I was like, there's a story an audio story that I'm listening to. I'm like, let me listen to a little bit of the audio. Then I looked at my clock, and it was 1:45, and I was like, wait a minute. 3 o'clock her time is 2 o'clock my time. Oh my gosh. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So my days are very leisure. Yesterday was swim lessons. I'm learning to swim. So yesterday, I went and took my swim lessons, and today it was line dancing. And then tomorrow my training, I have a training coach that works me out a couple of times a week. So, I get the activity in between just chilling and relaxing and yeah, whatever, whatever.
I love it because it's, you've created a life to where you're still learning. So you're learning, and it's not that, because I feel like sometimes when people think about retirement, they think of like rocking on the porch in a chair reading the paper, but it's not. As long as God gives you life and vitality and you're in your right mind, there's always something to create. So you're creating these routines, you're creating these groups, so you're still contributing, you're being fulfilled, and you get to stay busy. But the difference is you're busy doing the things that you want to do, how you want to do
Yeah,
them, with whom you want to
yeah.
do them with, where you want to do them. And so for a woman who's listening and they're like, yeah, easy for her to say, or I can't do it. What advice would you give? How would you tell her to find her inner compass, or what would you say to her to help put her on a path? I mean, everybody's path is different. It may not be relocating from out of the country, but at least trying to design a life that fits your rhythm, that fits your energy, that allows you to have the most peace and not being so, subjected to just whatever the world is throwing at you. What advice would you give to help someone find that for themselves?
It's so many things, but a couple of things that come to mind is why are you fearful? Why? Identify your why for wanting to go. Identify your why for just say, you know what, I want to relocate. Okay, why? Because that's the question. I get other people refer people to me. Oh, I got a friend in Panama. I know this sister in Panama. Here's her number. Get in touch with her. And one of the first questions I ask them is, what's your why? What's your
Mm.
why? Because I think if your why is a strong why, that you can best create whatever, scenario or explanation or whatever you need to create. But a lot of what I'm finding is people in their, I would say, late 50s who are just starting to become grandparents. The children, they got that first little grandbaby and they're like, oh, I would leave, but my grandbaby,
Yep.
okay. So if your why is strong enough, I think you get to figure out how to do it all. It's not either or. It's not, because we go back.
Mm.
I was in Charleston last week. We go back and forth
Yep.
to the States whenever we want to, whenever we need to. But that's it. When we want to go, we go. So I've got lots of friends here in Panama Pacifica. One sister just got back yesterday from California. We were so glad to see her because she'd been gone for like almost a month. And we were like, where have you been? She's like, girl, went home, my brother eloped and we were upset with him, but then we had to plan a wedding because my family is just going to have a wedding regardless. So she stayed an extra week so that they could plan a wedding for her brother and her new sister-in-law, But we go back and forth. So, understand what your why is. Understand what your why is. Be able to answer that question. Why do you want to leave the country? Well, and the stronger your why becomes, the more strength and the more confidence you have in pursuing it because it's your why, which means something in your gut is pulling you and pushing you towards
Hmm.
that. If it's a week where I don't know, no, you're not ready. You're not ready.
Right.
You're not ready.
Because
So
that pull will become so it's almost to the point where it like you said, it's a pull. It starts maybe as a nudge, then a longing, a yearning, but it
yes,
gets stronger to where
yes,
you can't ignore it.
yes. One of the men that moved here, he said something that I thought was so profound. He said, I had thought about it. I had visited Panama a couple of times, and I was pretty sure that I wanted to make the move. And then my daughter was like, "Well, Dad, you're not going to be here for your grand if you move. You're not going to be here for your grandson." And he said he thought about that for a while, and then he was like, um, "That's your son. I raised you, so I tell you what, I'm going to go to Panama, and I will visit you and my grandson." So he's here, and his daughter and his grandson. He's been here. He got here when he got here last spring. His daughter and grandson are on their way, and he is so excited because he knows that she's going to love it when they get here. He said, "I know they're going to love it. They're probably going to want to stay." But he just made the move. He was like, "I'm not going to let you tie me down to my grandson. I will come and visit and he's from Texas. I will come back to Texas and visit my grandson, but I'm not going to let you tie me down. That's your child. You raised him."
Yeah, good for him. And then the gift that he's able to give his grandchild, the gift of being able to visit a different country and learn a different culture. Like, how cool is that? Like, how many people can say, like, my grandpa lives in Panama? Your why. And it starts in so many people, even with relocating, because you can leave and go to a different country, but you don't leave yourself. So really having a strong sense of self and understanding why you're doing it, because if you don't clear that out and get that clarity, you're going to show up in a new space, and when that novelty starts to wear off, you're still going to be dealing with some of those same issues. So thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. You are, and I have to say this to give honor to Mrs. Vivian Smalls German, my mama, that you are the gift that she left for me. Everybody who knew her just knew that she was a light. She was always very different, like never, she always just young at heart.
Yeah,
Always she would be happy I got my nails done because she every time she see me, let me see your nails. And she said, "Oh, you're working with the public. You need to keep your nails done." So all the young ladies that she mentored would always keep her nails done around her. And so I miss her dearly, but that light that she had continues to shine. And so just knowing you makes me feel a little bit more connected to her. And I know that she would be cheering you on and her laugh.
yeah.
She would be so just so proud of you and what you're doing. So again, I thank you. I'm gonna